What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here. And before we get into the video, I do have a fairly significant announcement to make. From this point forward, DFS On Demand is going to be a PGA only website. I'm only going to offer tools for the PGA Tour that are updated on a regular basis. I'm going to run out the rest of Major League Baseball season, but I'm not going to reboot NFL. I'm not going to reboot NBA next year. It's really an opportunity for me to deep dive and focus on something that I'm really passionate about, which is fantasy golf. I hope that you guys can see that in these videos. And quite honestly, if you only follow me on these videos or on Twitter, you might not even know that I offer other sports. But now it's going to open up my schedule and my attention to focus, just have one singular attention on the PGA Tour and golf in general. So we're going to have a lot of new tools coming out. There's going to be sports betting tools. There's going to be showdown stuff, just things that I have not had the opportunity to dive into in the past. I'm going to have that opportunity. I'm still going to offer, and probably if you play the other sports, it's actually probably going to get better for you on DFS On Demand, because I'm probably just going to make everything available. So if you want like the historic game logs for NFL and MLB and NBA, like I'm probably just going to release those on the site at some point. So keep an eye out for that as the new season comes up. A lot of the data and projects that I've been working on, again, it'll almost just go open source. So there's still going to be a lot of content. I'll still do some deep dives into tutorials, like how to make projections for all sports. We'll do like more March Madness stuff. Like there'll just be more content in general, but the regular refreshing of the daily tools is going to be PGA only, so you'll see that focus starting now. If there is anything specific for the PGA Tour, now's the time to ask for it, because I'm in tool creation mode as we get closer to releasing sports betting and showdown stuff. So there is a full blog post at the top of dfsondemand.com where I kind of explain why I came to this decision. So if you want to go over and read that, please do. But for now, let's get to the video. All right, the Charles Schwab Challenge, formerly known as the Dean and DeLuca, formerly known as the Fort Worth Invitational, formerly known as the Crown Plaza Invitational, something like that. This tournament has had a bunch of different names over the year, but it's played in Fort Worth at Colonial Country Club. It has been the same course for as far back as our tournament history purposes are necessary. Justin Rose, your defending champion after playing it for the first time last year. And it's a fairly unique course. Driving distance, probably not going to be a big factor this week. Little tiny greens that you're going to have to throw darts at on a par 70, and you're going to have to putt a little bit. When we get to the course key stats, you'll see it's a lot about putting is where we found success. So let's jump into this with the cheat sheet. And you'll notice again, I'm going to start a band, and the band name is going to be called Five Guys Over $10,000, because that seems to be the only route that DraftKings knows where to go is 5 guys over 10,000, and it's Justin Rose, Jon Rahm, Jordan Spieth, Rickie Fowler, and Xander Schauffele. Now, all of those guys obviously played the PGA Championship last week, head back to Texas. The new schedule kind of mixes things up a little bit. Head back to Texas to take on Colonial. So Rose, your defending champion at 11,400. I really think the most interesting name here is there's two, right? Rosie is very clearly like the the cash game option, I suppose, right? He's 11,400, but coming off a great Wells Fargo championship, played well until basically Sunday at the PGA. He was in contention for a while. You're defending champion, like there's no knocks against him. Jon Rahm, 11,200, feels like that GPP pivot. He must have been one of the most popular players last week at the PGA, goes out and misses the cut. What we have always seen is when a really highly owned golfer misses the cut, the owners the next week or the next time he plays, especially the next week, are slow and reluctant to forgive. So Rahm, I suspect, especially in, kind of the sandwich here between Spieth, Fowler, Xander, and Justin Rose, probably goes a few ticks less owned than he should be, despite having a second place 2 years ago, a fifth place last year here, this would be a really good course fit for him. I'm excited to fire him up again in GPPs, but I'm a glutton for punishment. So I don't know if you feel the same way, but I'm willing to fire him up. The rest of the 10,000 guys, nothing really too interesting here. I'm not playing Spieth at 10,900. He's showing up at majors, but his game to me is just not sharp enough. Fowler, I think, is interesting, but he's always a little bit popular. Xander, I think he'll be fine. This is one of the newer things that I've been rolling out. And again, as I have more time and attention to build new things, this is a live leaderboard. This actually updates every hour throughout the week. I usually tweet this out. So as guys are playing, you can see, their DraftKings points, how many birdies they're making, and their strokes gain numbers. And if we sort this by tee to green, you'll notice some of these guys that had really good tee to green weeks and then really, really bad putting weeks. So Molinari's down here. Despite finishing T48, I mean, he was pretty great tee to green. He's basically, what is that? 10th or 11th in this field, tee to green, and lost 4.5 strokes putting. And don't get me wrong, as I kind of flip through this, Molinari is not a great putter by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not as bad as he showed last week. So if you go down to this, he usually gains about a half a stroke per tournament on the greens. So that's, what? 0.125 strokes every round. Like, it's very small. He's basically an even golfer. So for him to lose basically 4.5 strokes on the greens last week, that's almost 5 strokes off of his baseline, or basically is 5 strokes off of his baseline, and played great outside of that, including gaining 6 strokes on approach, which was one of the higher numbers that we saw all week. I mean, that's the type of combination that I would expect to turn around. And there were some other guys on that list, right? So the other tee to green guys, Gary Woodland finished T8 and lost nearly 5 strokes putting. Paul Casey, again, not another good putter, or I'm sorry, he's usually a bad putter, but not this bad, right? Where he lost over 3 strokes putting last week. So this is a really good way to kind of go back and see what might be some outliers here. Like for Adam Scott to gain another 7 strokes around the green, like that's not going to happen. He's not in the field this week, but those are the types of things that I would be looking for. All right, so back to the cheat sheet here, and moving down, I want to point out a few more, and then we'll go over to the strokes gains tool and the key stats tool. When you get down here under 9,000, I'm on Kokrak. I already fired a bet on Kokrak. He's $8,900. Just, again, a really elite, especially in this field, approach player. His results continue to be really, really good. He had that 69th place finish at the Wells Fargo Championship, but just knocking out top 25s outside of that, finished 23rd last week. Absolutely. I'm not sure how much of Rory Sabatini I'll get here. So Sabatini's 8,800. It's tough to kind of get 2 guys in that high $8,000 range unless you're willing to play both of them. So if I take Kokrak, I'm not sure I can get both of these guys right in any lineups that I really want. But Sabatini got the week off last week at the PGA because he did not qualify. But that might be good for him. He's playing a lot of golf recently, but look at these finishes. 18th at the Valspar, 39th at Corrales, 36th at the Valero Texas Open, 10th at the RBC, which is another kind of like less than driver course, right? Then you go to 18th at the Wells Fargo Championship and 5th at the Byron Nelson. He's not necessarily a long hitter, and this week all of those guys are absolutely in play. Ches Reavie, another guy, 83. 83 is probably a little bit too much for my blood. I actually did fire a bet on Reavie as well. But progressively better here his last couple starts. 14th at the PGA Championship last week. He's one of these guys. He's one of these guys that if he gets hot, he can go really, really low. And we've seen that at times, and he's trending in the right direction for me. So when we look for value, I do want to flip over to the key stats for this. So this is another one of these this is a fairly new tool. I've updated it, made it a little prettier. Again, now that I can add, spend a little more time on this stuff, it gets better. So I've got the hole by hole breakdown here. I've also got the little visuals, which I thought was kind of cool. That's the first and 18th hole at Colonial, but still with the highest correlated and highest ranked stats. And the correlated stats, not too much of a surprise for a par 70. You get, SDFA, you get par 4 scoring, you get strokes gained total. That's all to be expected. The highest ranked stats, there was a lot. Colonial's kind of an outlier course on the PGA Tour when it comes to some of these stats. So there's like, a dozen stats that rank number one here. And they're basically all either par 4 or putting stats. So that's where we're going to look. I mean, you can see this. Putting average, putts over 10 feet, putts between 20 and 25, putts inside 5, putts per round, strokes gained putting. Like, you got to make putts, man. You got to make putts. So here's where let's start with this here. So let's start with par 4 scoring. I think par 4 scoring obviously going to be very important this week, as it is on any par 70. And the guy that leads the way here is Rickie Fowler. So 10,500, followed by Louis, Ryan Palmer, Scott Piercy, and Taylor Gooch. Do not forget that last one there, Taylor Gooch, 6,700. Then I want to go to let's go to strokes gained putting. Okay, so strokes gained putting, we get a ton of value. The top 4 guys in the field are all $7,500 or less. So Dominic Bazzelli, Kiradech, Denny McCarthy, and Vaughn Taylor are the top 4 in putting. The next 2 guys are the 2 studs, Fowler and Rose. Strokes gained approach with these greens being so small, I think is going to be fairly critical. And Taylor Gooch leads the way here. And I just know I'm going to talk myself into Taylor Gooch again. He has not played a lot of golf worldwide. I think he played the Players. Well, I guess I don't have to guess. Let's go back here. Taylor Gooch is $6,700. I don't have to guess. Yeah, we've not seen him on the PGA Tour. I believe it was the Players. Made the cut at the Players, pretty sure. And then he just played in a web.com event last week and finished like T13. So we've just not seen a lot of him. Good or bad, we just haven't seen it. He is great on approaches, great at par 4s, which is kind of what you'd expect, fairly neutral as a putter. And the knock against him on a weekly basis, outside the fact that, he's not very good, right? He's $6,700, but he has certain skill sets that would fit here, is that he's not a long hitter. Well, if there's ever a week to not be a long hitter, this is the week. Kind of goes with Corey Conners as well, who's always a huge tee to green guy. The problem with Corey Conners is he cannot putt to save his life. Kokrak is third on this strokes gained approach list. Then you get Furyk, Grillo. Justin Rose continues to show up basically in every single category. He's just an absolute stud. And then I'll show you birdie or better, although I think the cut line's usually over par here, but we did see Rosie get to, I think he wanted at 20 under last year. So if you want to win it, you might need to go fairly low. So when we sort by birdie or better, I mean, there's a lot of guys that make a lot of birdies. Bryson and Rose lead the way. Cameron Champ, Siwoo Kim, Rickie Fowler, Matt Every, all on top of this list. It's kind of the names that you would expect. Our buddy Taylor Gooch, also pretty good here too, right? He's like 12th on the list, right below Jordan Spieth, more than Tony Finau. Obviously a much smaller sample size, but the more I look at this, I got to stop looking at it, because the more I look at it, I'm gonna end up playing Taylor Gooch here. Here's the strokes gained stuff. So if you want to do tee to green, this is a much smaller field. I think it's only 122 players as opposed to like the 162 we got last week, which was just massive. Strokes gained tee to green, there's not really any outliers. Some weeks we see someone way up to the far right here. Not necessarily the case. Rahm and Rose lead their respective pricing tiers, but they're not significantly better. Like if Rory was in this field, he'd be up here in the upper right. Xander, Paul Casey, Jason Kokrak, Benny On, Corey Conners, and Boo Weekley. Although Boo Weekley's only 4 rounds, so take that for what it's worth. I'll show you the putting, which is something we don't usually do because putting is so volatile. But hey, if it shows up as the number 1 stat like 9 times, I got to show it to you. So Rose, Spieth, and Fowler, believe it or not, pretty much, for as much as we talk about how poor Spieth's putting has been. It has started to turn around. You know, he's averaging 2.2 strokes gained. I think that's per tournament over the last 36 rounds. So he's up there, and then you get a lot of value. So you see this kind of craters. So the guys up above 10K, obviously all great putters. It craters in here between like the 8 and 10K mark. And then the value presents itself with McDowell, Kiradech, Sam Burns, Andrew Putnam, Vaughn Taylor, those guys if you're looking for straight putters. And then if you're looking for approach players, again, nobody really in the top tier here. Obviously, Rose is up there, but guys that are much cheaper are much better on approaches. Even someone like Casey, Griot, Kokrak, and then again, a lot of value down at the bottom, Lashley, Gooch, Weekly, Connors, and Furyk. So I'll be trying to find some of those. You know, I think you could obviously tell what my core plays are going to be. I imagine it's going to end up being Gooch. It's going to be Kokrak. Molnar will probably make a lot of lineups. There's just a lot of different places that we can go here. There is one more thing I want to show you here, just to hammer this home, because I'm not sure. I guess we talk about him a lot, but how good Jason Kokrak has been. I mean, here's his tee to green numbers, and he plays a lot. Like, Kokrak plays a ton. You know, for him to be consistently posting, 2, 3, 4 strokes gained tee to green every single round. I mean, it's really phenomenal. In almost every tournament, he's gaining every round or 3 of the rounds. I mean, it's only been the Wells Fargo, he lost in 2 of the rounds. Did it at the RBC Heritage, but outside of that, barely any other tournaments that he has not gained strokes tee to green 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 4 rounds. He's just been so good. Not necessarily sure if he has the chops to win a PGA golf tournament this year, but man, he just continues to impress me. Really does. So there you go. That is the preview for the Charles Schwab Challenge. Again, if there's any requests you've ever had, as big or as small as you want for PGA tools, now's the time to say, because I am in full PGA mode, which is a really exciting thing. So let me know what you think about that. Tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand, or leave a comment below. I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.